So just last week we drove the 2022 Ford Bronco Raptor Edition. Now we're driving the Bronco Everglades. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between the two, but we're going to deep dive into this one. Let's get into it. So the Everglades is a special edition of the Bronco for people that want to traverse a little bit more deeply into the wilderness. We do have the snorkel so you can get deeper into water. We do have the winch, which we'll dive into, so you can pull yourself out if needed. And we got some 35-inch tires on this sucker. So before we dive too deep into the Everglades, let's first talk about the different trim levels offered with the Broncos. All right, and first off, almost all the Bronco trims are available in both a 2-door and 4-door configuration. Your base trim is called the base, and then you have the Big Bend trim. Then you have the Black Diamond, the Outer Banks, the Heritage trim, the Badlands trim, and then the Everglades trim, which is what we're driving. But the Everglades is only offered in a 4-door configuration, not a 2-door. Then you have the Wild Track, the Heritage Limited, and then finally the Raptor, which is also only offered in a 4-door trim, not a 2-door. All right, and taking a look at the exterior here. First, let's start off with that color. I really like this color on this Bronco. It's called Eruption Green, a very forest green slash kind of almost British green looking. You can get the Everglades in a couple of different colors, but this one is definitely my favorite. Believe it or not, drew a lot of attention, I think, mainly because of the color. I probably got more attention driving this thing than I did the Raptor, which is interesting. So moving on from the color, the Everglades comes standard with a protective safari bar, rock rails, and the same steel bash plates found on the Black Diamond and Badlands Bronco models. We have a unique carbonized gray grille with gloss black Bronco lettering, which looks pretty cool up here and looks really good with that green color. Of course, we can't move on from the front without talking about this heavy duty modular front bumper by Ford Performance with the ZEON 10S Warren winch, featuring a 10,000 pound capacity and a 100-foot synthetic line. Our wheels here are 17-inch dark carbon gray aluminum wheels, rocking 315 70R17 Goodyear tires. They are about the most beastly tires you can get on this stock without getting the Raptor, which has 37-inch tires. We do have that hard top gray modular in color roof, which we'll talk more about when we get inside and drive the sucker. The front and rear axles, transfer case, and transmission also offer raised vents for improved water fording. Combined, these design changes lead to water fording capacity of 36.4 inches. And we do have a ground clearance here of 11.7 inches. The standard Bronco has 8.4 inches and the non-Everglades has 11.6 inches. All right, let's talk about the rear of the vehicle here. You do have the pull-out door to access the back. And obviously this flips up. Really good amount of space back here. We do have 35.6 cubic feet of cargo volume. Behind the second row, you can fold it down. It's a 60-40 split, and that'll give you 77.6 total cargo space. Again, a ton of room to fit whatever you need for your camping or exploring endeavors. This one specifically is fitted with a pull-out shelf here for tailgating and things like that. It holds quite a bit of weight. Definitely if you're doing camping in this thing, that's a cool option. It doesn't take up a lot of space, although it does eat into some of the cargo volume. Ford also has this thing packed with these bags here that are made for holding the doors and the roof panels. And it does show you that these do load into the back here. So if you're out on the trail and you want to take everything off, you can do it and still load it in here. You don't have to worry about leaving it all in the garage or something like that. You can take them off, throw them in the bags, put them in the back, take it out for a drive, come back, put them all back on. All the tools and everything that you need are in here. It's a really cool setup. I didn't take everything off. I'm not gonna take everything off. It can be done for sure. And with that, the rest of the cargo area is pretty standard. You can, again, see the frame of the Bronco back here. It is painted green like the rest of the truck. Really cool. But let's move to the front. Let's check out what's under the hood and see what powers this thing. Actually, before we move to the front, I did want to point out, it does have a full-size spare here. When we drove the Raptor, you have the 37-inch tire back here, which caused Ford to change up the Bronco where this tail light right here was higher up. These tail lights had to poke out more to get the angle correct to get around that big tire. And the trailer hitch had to drop an extra 2 inches or so to be able to accommodate that. So this is still a 35, but they didn't have to modify a bunch of stuff to fit it. It just fits, which is definitely interesting, but let's go ahead and check out the engine. All right, and then here in this Everglade, we have the 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder engine. It delivers 300 horsepower, 325 pound-feet of torque, which Ford says is the most torque out of any 4-cylinder engine in its class. It is matched up to the 10-speed automatic transmission. The Bronco is also offered with a 2.7 liter EcoBoost V6 engine, or for the Raptor only, you get the 3 liter EcoBoost V6, which again, we did drive just last week. It's a beast. You need to check out that video for sure. But with that, let's go ahead and close up the hood. Let's jump in the back seats, talk about the interior of this thing. Then obviously we'll jump in the front, take a look at the tech. We'll take it for a drive, and we'll wrap it up a little bit after that. Let's keep going. All right, so when we reviewed the Raptor, we neglected the rear seats. I didn't think it was quite as important for that review, but this one is definitely important. This is the same back seat area that you would get in any normal Bronco, and it's decent enough. You don't have a lot of amenities back here. We got the same materials that we do in the front seats. You do get your window switches in the center console here, as well as some power adapters, USB and home type plug. You have this grid on the back of the seats, as well as this little net pocket, so you can like tie things on here. Headroom is good, knee room is good, foot room is good. The seat back does sit up a little bit more. The seat back can be pushed back and recline a little bit, which is really good. You do have a oh crap handle here, but nothing hooked to the frame here. No center armrest or anything. No real cup holders back here. Again, it's decent. We had the kids back here throughout the week, taking them to school, making grocery runs and things like that. So it can be used as a family vehicle if that's what you're planning on doing with it. It could definitely hold 4 adults very comfortably if you're going on a camping trip with some buddies or something like that. But with that, let's go ahead and jump in the front seats. All right, guys, here in the front seats, first off, our trim here is Onyx vinyl. It's a black and dark gray seating with black and dark gray throughout the cabin. Obviously, these seats are made to weather some abuse, so it's not actual leather, obviously, but it's a nice material, looks decent enough in here, and we've got the Bronco emblem right there in the seat back. Let me show you around. All right, so first off, we do have a push button start here. Let's kick it on. And of course, you do have that 12-inch LCD display. Nice UX design here. We do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integrations. Really stellar setup here. Above the screen, you do have toggles for locking the front and rear axles. You have a trail turn assist and your traction control and hazard lights. Moving below the screen, you have your toggle to turn off the auto engine shut off, some audio buttons, and your AC and heat controls, including the heated seat button, which this does have heated seats, but no heated steering wheel like the Raptor had. Another thing that this doesn't have that the Raptor had was the 360 camera. We do have a reverse camera for backing up, which is good. And we do have some parking sensors but only in the back, not in the front, which, by the way, you really have to remember that that winch is on the front. If you're used to really getting close to a garage or another car, you really got to remember that that winch is up there, because that's an extra 6 to 8 inches sticking out from your bumper. But we do just have the reverse camera and no button to toggle on that camera without putting it in reverse. Next, you have your USB Type-C and USB Type-A hookups for the infotainment system. We don't have a wireless charging pad like we did in the Bronco Raptor. You do have a information plate here that says built in Michigan assembly plant Ford. Has the front Bronco look to it. Then of course your cup holders here, window switches and mirror control back here. Again, it's a little bit awkward to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's not that bad. Nice console. Your traditional gear shifter, got the Bronco emblem there. No electronic gear shifting. And then our terrain management with those GOAT modes. So you got 2-wheel high, 4-wheel high, 4-wheel low, and 4-wheel auto, as well as your terrain management. Our modes include a normal mode, an eco mode, sport mode, slippery mode, mud and ruts, sand, rock crawl, and that's it. Again, this doesn't have the Baja mode that the Raptor has, but great terrain modes for what this is built for. You can also see that our instrument cluster here is a smaller screen with a analog gauge over here, where in the Raptor we had a full LCD screen. It's decent enough, you get decent info, but that full digital screen is definitely my preference. Looking at the steering wheel, again, we get buttons on either side of the steering wheel, cruise control, audio, and interface buttons. On the Raptor, we had extra buttons at the bottom of the steering wheel here. We don't get those on this one, but it's a nice size, beefy steering wheel. Feels good in the hands. Something you do get in this that you also got in the Raptor are these auxiliary switches, which are really great to have if you need to hook up any lights or anything like that. And that about covers it for the interior and some of the tech in this thing. I think it's time to get the Bronco out on the road. So there are definitely some differences in driving this versus the Raptor Bronco. Namely, it's not quite as big, not quite as tall, and the extra power from that 3-liter engine we're missing. But for day-to-day driving, not really trying to push it, it's still fantastic. It feels good. It's super comfortable to be in. It's almost a little bit nicer having the less wide of a track. It definitely doesn't have as much body roll as the Raptor, which is better for cornering. Not that you're pushing it in corners or anything like that. Again, I didn't take this thing off-road during this week. I just really don't have places to do that around here for my day-to-day reviews, but the majority of people buying these things just aren't doing that anyways. And if you are buying it to take it off-road, I definitely recommend checking out some videos on that. If you haven't already, you probably have. The guys at the Texas Truck channel have done fantastic reviews on the Bronco off-road, and hopefully eventually we'll be able to get to an event where they're taking these things off-road and we'll be able to drive it off-road. But again, just during our normal reviews, we just don't have the opportunity to do that. Power here is good enough. It's not going to impress anybody, but it still gets up and goes. Your fuel economy is slightly better at 18 miles per gallon city, 17 highway. During the full week that I've been driving it, we're averaging 17 miles per gallon, where in the Raptor we were barely hitting 14. So that's a win. I do miss having the 360 camera for this thing. It's still a big SUV, so parking it, I definitely would rather have the 360 than not, or at least have those sensors, especially one letting me know how far out that winch sticks. We do still have Ford's co-pilot safety system, although not as advanced as the Raptor that we had. But we do have some lane warning systems, cruise control, safety systems for backing up, blind spot monitoring, things that you would come to expect, although we don't have radar guided cruise control, which is a safety feature I really like these days. Although in my opinion, if you are getting this up on a highway, good luck. My one big complaint about this is the wind noise. Thanks to the roof on here, it's super windy, sounds like you always have a window open. It doesn't leak or anything, and we had the same effect in the Raptor Bronco. Although it felt a little minimized, it was definitely still noisy, and getting up on a highway doing 70, it's just almost unbearably annoying. And just for some perspective, this is on the highway doing 70. Obviously coming from lav mic here, but when I say there's a lot of wind noise, there's a lot of wind noise. So if you're commuting a lot on the highways, just something to bear in mind. You might definitely want to take it for a test drive, get it out on a highway and see what you think. Might not be a deal breaker for most people, probably wouldn't be a complete deal breaker for me, but it can get annoying. One thing I can say about sitting up in this thing and looking down that green hood is that this really reminds me of driving that Land Rover. It was the same kind of forest green, off-roading feel, sit up nice and tall. That's a fantastic off-roader. That's a fantastic vehicle with a lot of heritage. And just the fact this even slightly feels like that says a lot for it, in my opinion. All right, with that, let's pull back over. Let's talk about the price of this thing. Then we'll talk about some of my final thoughts, what it competes really well with, and we'll wrap up the video there. All right, let's quickly talk about the price before we wrap this thing up. Base price for the base Bronco is just over $34,000, which is a good price to get into an off-roading beast. I'd love to get into that base Bronco and see exactly how that stacks up to the last two that I've driven, this one and of course that Raptor. The Everglades base is at $53,000 and the MSRP on this one with a couple of options is just over $56,000. And of course, if you look at that Raptor, it was $81,000, so quite a big gap, quite a big gap. Let's jump out and I'll give you some of my final thoughts and we'll wrap this thing up. All right, guys, so after a week of driving the Raptor Bronco and then a week of driving the Everglades Bronco, let me give you some of my final thoughts on the Bronco in general, as well as just this Everglades trim versus the Raptor trim. So first off, I really did like this Everglades trim. Really love the color, can't get over that enough. The winch on day-to-day use, obviously that's more of a burden than anything else, but if you are taking this really seriously off-road, that thing is going to be super handy. The snorkel, again, it's more of a gimmick for day-to-day traveling, but if you are going to be putting this thing in some swamps and some water, if you own a ranch here in Texas and you need to go through a creek bed or something like that, this thing is a powerful beast. For day-to-day driving, I actually liked the Raptor a bit better, just because it's a little bit actually smoother, quieter, kind of easier to live with every day, even though it's much more wide and just a more of a beastly vehicle. I kind of have a mix between liking that one versus liking this one. The engine, obviously, the more power, you gotta love more power. The looks of it, definitely. I would probably get a Raptor with this color and just delete any kind of graphics. But it is also another $20,000 to get into the Raptor over this, the Everglades. So that should definitely come into consideration. Plus, who knows the availability on those Raptors versus the availability on this. And if you get a more standard Bronco, you could probably option it up to be this without a ton of money, but I think this is a really great package for sure. Now to the Bronco in general, compared to its competition, mainly the Jeep Wrangler. And I did have a discussion with a guy that kind of stopped me at a gas station that was really inquiring about this versus getting a Wrangler. And he would be using it day to day, and his wife would be driving it also. And in that case, I did recommend him probably the Wrangler over the Bronco. The Wrangler is just more refined. Over the years, they've done a great job. It's got better fuel economy, better road mannerisms, less wind noise. The engine in those are pretty stellar. That 4xe is just a really great vehicle. This thing is bigger. I like the looks probably a little bit more. For off-roading, I'd probably pick this, although having a skinnier Jeep out on tight trails is always good. It's really a hard decision for me. It kind of depends on who's getting it and what you want it for, but a day-to-day driver that might hit the off-road once every year or so, I really do like the Wrangler. It's still kind of the best in its class, but this definitely comes super close, and all the trims that they have on the Broncos, all the different models and stuff, like this Everglades, really suits needs. And if you're doing tough stuff like this thing is built to do, I do recommend getting one of these. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the Everglades Bronco. Let me know what you think about the Raptor Bronco. Did you watch my other video? If not, go check it out now. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want more automotive reviews. We do a different review every week. Plus, we do a lot of off-road events where we take vehicles off-road and test them out. Unfortunately, we haven't tested out the Bronco off-road. Maybe that will come soon. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go check out TXGARAGE.com for more automotive reviews, written reviews from a lot of great authors over there. And with that, thanks for watching.